Here's what's coming up on Network Africa. 3 people killed after heavy rains triggered landslides in the Seychelles. Election campaigns end in Egypt ahead of a 3-day general election set to begin on Sunday. Plus, a joint report by the African Union and United Nations says about 20% of the continent's population are undernourished. Hello and welcome to the program. Today I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin in the Seychelles, where at least 3 people have died after heavy rains caused flooding on the island. Homes and roads in the main Seychelles island of Mahe were destroyed as boulders, debris and earth was displaced. According to the state broadcaster, 2 of them died when a big boulder flattened their home at Liniole. The 3rd person was dragged down the river by strong current at Bel Ombre. President Wavo Ramkalawan has declared a state of emergency after a blast in another part of Mahe at an explosive store that reached buildings and caused massive damage to an industrial zone. The government has also set up a disaster relief fund after Thursday's explosion. The Indian Ocean island nation of East Africa is a major tourist destination made up of 115 islands and is the least populous country in Africa with about 100,000 people. Soldiers belonging to the East African community have begun returning home after DR Congo's president, Felix Tshisekedi, refused to extend their stay. The soldiers had been deployed a year ago to fight M23 rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, but have since been deemed ineffective by the Congolese government, and their mandate expires on Friday. The troops are from Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, and South Sudan. Top officials also criticized their performance in the country. Soldiers from the Southern African Development Community, SADC, bloc are now expected to replace the East African force. However, no date has been set for their arrival. Now, Ethiopian security forces have arrested dozens of people ahead of an anti-war rally called by activists and opposition groups in the capital, Addis Ababa. In a statement, a joint security and intelligence task force says 97 arrests have been made, and they are accusing the organizers of plotting to cause disorder in the capital. Authorities also accused those arrested of planning to launch terror attacks under the guise of demonstrations. The rally, scheduled for Sunday, is set to be held in the capital's main square. But the organizers are saying they want to urge the federal army, which is engaged in security operations in the country's 2 largest regions, Oromia and Amhara, to return to the barracks. We move to Egypt now, where election campaigns have concluded ahead of a 3-day polling period starting on Sunday. Incumbent President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is seeking a 3rd term in office as an independent candidate, and despite a 2018 pledge that he would not vie again. He came to power a decade ago through a coup. 2 of the presidential contestants, Hazim Omar and Farid Zaran, are perceived as al-Sisi's allies, leading some critics to brand the election a sham. The election in Africa's 3rd most populous country has been overshadowed by the war in neighboring Gaza. Economic concerns are also rife amid a cost of living crisis in the country. A leading member of the civil democratic movement, Khalid Dawood, says the Gaza war, however, is a major boost for President Sisi.
Because the Gaza war was a major boost for President Sisi, and like many other countries in the world, in the cases of external threat, in the case of a war, people tend to rally behind the leader. He made it clear that he will not take part in any so-called liquidation of the Palestinian cause by allowing the forced deportation of the Palestinian people towards Egypt. So this kind of, increased maybe even his popularity rather than, being very critical, particularly of his economic policies, which was the dominant issue before the October 7 war between Israel and Hamas. So generally speaking, you can say that the war in Gaza definitely overshadowed the entire issue of the presidential election to the degree that, people do not really care.
Joining us now is Edward Iranian, VOA's correspondent in Cairo, Egypt. Hello, Edward. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure, Layo. Thank you for having me.
So what is the mood like today and, in the country, even as campaigns have ended and the election set to begin on Sunday?
Well, I think Egyptians are a little bit downbeat because of the economic situation, while at the same time, I don't necessarily know that everyone is blaming President Sisi for the economic situation. I think people understand that Egypt was hit with a number of outside crises like the Ukraine-Russia war, which made wheat prices go up. The COVID virus, and the external pressure from oil prices. So a lot of different things hit the country, and I think many people, at least educated people, understand this, which is why I haven't heard necessarily a lot of blame for the president, although people are not very happy about the economic situation.
Now, it's a 3-day election, we understand, from December 10 to 12. Now, help us explain to us how the Egyptian election is expected to go over the 3 days.
Well, the past elections I've observed, I guess 2012, 2014, and 2018, I'm guessing that that's about right. Usually what happens is people don't all turn out on the first day. Many Egyptians work several jobs for the most part, and for that reason they're not always free. So then people have a second and third day to go out and vote. There's traditionally been a fine for not voting, but I don't really know that I've ever heard of anyone being fined, even though they didn't vote.
And after the elections, how soon can we expect results?
Well, they're saying December 18th. I'm not sure. I think things can always change. So a week, give or take. And I believe that's what happened the last time. There is a runoff, I believe, in January if there is a close call between the candidates. I don't think people are expecting that to happen. But there are 4 candidates. Probably what's going to happen is President Sisi will get a majority of votes, and the other 3 candidates will siphon off the opposition vote.
All right, even as we wait for election day, we know many people have been saying, it's been overshadowed by the war in neighboring Gaza. However, what changes are Egyptians looking to see from, the new leaders that will emerge?
Well, there are a lot of structural problems to the country. The economy, people would like to see some of the state institutions run by private companies, which would make more competition, maybe produce more profits. And also a lot of government institutions have borrowed money recklessly in some cases. They perhaps would like to see them stop borrowing money so they don't get into a major debt. I think Egypt has a $240 billion debt, if I recall correctly. But anyway, a lot of these items were unnecessary. People didn't, companies or the Egyptian economy didn't have to support this kind of a debt if they hadn't borrowed this money recklessly.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Edward Yeranian, the VOA's correspondent in Cairo. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lyle.
Well, persistent droughts in Tunisia have slowed down economic growth, leading to a slight increase in the second quarter of 2023 to 15.6% compared to 15.3% last year. Well, 4 years of drought have dried up Tunisian reservoirs, threatening harvests that are critical to the country's battered economy. Farm owners find themselves grappling with the climate change-induced drought.
Tunisia farmer Mohamed Hamami holds dry pomegranates in his hands while standing in his drought-hit farm in northern Tunisia's Testour town. The 74-year-old farmer says he's never witnessed a drought this bad, adding that while previously the country had witnessed a few days of severe heat at a time, this year it's been hot for months.
I am 74 years old and I have never seen drought and heat like this before. Previously, there would be 3 or 4 days of high temperature and then it cools down. However, now temperature has been the same since June with intense heat.
Inadequate rainfall and scorching heat have left the water levels at the Sidi El Barek Dam in the town of Nafsa, 140 kilometers west of Tunis, very low, and the land surrounding it cracked and dry. The dam's water reserves are only at 22% of its total capacity as of mid-November, according to the Tunisian Agricultural Ministry.
At the start of this agricultural season, there are significant concerns about the possibility of a drought year. If another drought season occurs, we will face many problems because we don't have enough water to irrigate grain crops, spanning approximately 1,000 acres across 3 or 4 states. This lack of self-sufficiency in our food production poses a risk for what we will eat or cultivate in the coming year.
Earlier this year, the country announced it was cutting off water supplies to citizens for 7 hours a night due to the drought. The Agriculture Ministry has also banned the use of potable water to wash cars, water green areas and clean streets and public places. Violators face a fine and imprisonment for a period of between 6 days to 6 months.
A new joint report by the African Union and 3 UN bodies say nearly 282 million people in Africa, about 20% of the continent's population, are undernourished. The joint report also reveals that the number of undernourished Africans has increased by 57 million people since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, signaling the deterioration of Africa's food crisis. The report has attributed the widespread unaffordability of healthy food to escalating food costs in recent years, particularly in Western and Eastern Africa, which have left a large proportion of people unable to maintain a healthy diet. The agencies also say that about 30% of children under 5 on the continent are stunted due to malnutrition. In 2015, the World Health Organization came up with the Differentiated Service Delivery, DSD for short, to address HIV/AIDS treatment to people's needs and particular situation. This is also an attempt to speed up the UNAIDS goal of 0 new infections and AIDS-related deaths by 2030. Experts convened on Lagos for the DSD Performance Review Summit for 2023. Our correspondent, Mary Alale Yusuf, reports.
In the absence of a robust monitoring and evaluation model for HIV/AIDS response review, the Differentiated Service Delivery, or DSD Performance Review, was set up, and Nigeria, in conjunction with the Global Fund, is holding this year's edition in Lagos. Members of the National Agency for Action Against AIDS, NACA, the National AIDS and STIs Control Program, NASCAP, and the International Center for AIDS Care and Treatment Program, ICAP, are here, among other agencies. This year, the focus is on Anambra, Lagos, Kaduna, and Taraba states.
Tailored services, basically. Services that are tailored to the needs of the recipients of care. So that's what DSD entails.
The meeting moves on to the meat of the matter, an examination of quantitative and qualitative data for the differentiated service.
There's an improvement in people being devolved after the second year of the cohort.
67% said that the recipients of care actually prefer to be devolved to the home delivery. Then there was poor healthcare worker attitude. I think we saw this a lot when we did the ROC respondents' perspective.
Challenges which must be addressed have been identified in the model.
We need to do a lot of attitudinal change in terms of for the healthcare workers.
We're not just offering you treatment because you are HIV positive. We're offering you treatment in a way that is contextual, that answers to your needs. So, for example, if you're somebody who works 9 to 5 every day and you have no spare time, we can't expect you to make out time in that tough, hard to come to the hospital. So maybe you do after hours. Maybe when you close, you can come take up your drugs.
Participants at the summit are happy with the wealth of information that has been disseminated here and plan to expand the DSD program by adding more states and improve it by training existing staff to fine-tune the response and quality of care to people living with HIV. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to the program. The UK has given Rwanda a further £100 million this year as part of its deal to relocate asylum seekers there. The Home Office's top civil servant said this in a letter to members of Parliament, that the payment was made in April after £140 million had already been sent to the African nation. The revelation came hours after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak vowed to finish the job of reviving the plan after the resignation of his immigration minister this week. Well, the scheme to send some asylum seekers to Rwanda for processing in order to deter people from crossing the English Channel was first announced by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson in April 2022. But it has repeatedly been delayed by legal challenges, and no asylum seekers have been sent from the UK so far. Zimbabwe and Botswana say they are working on a bilateral deal to scrap visa requirements for each other's citizens. They join the growing wave of African countries easing entry restrictions for visitors from the continent. Or several African countries have recently introduced bilateral visa-free movement arrangements. Botswana and Namibia, South Africa and Ghana and Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo are some of the countries that have introduced reciprocal visa waiver agreements this year. Rwanda has already eased visa restrictions for Africans, allowing visas on entry. Seychelles, the Gambia and Benin are also allowing visa-free entry to Africans, a policy currently under consideration by Kenya's government. The South African National Defence Force SANDF has refuted claims suggesting there are torture squads within the army who have been carrying out criminal activities. Last week, Open Secrets published claims asserting the discovery of acts such as torture, kidnapping, and alleged murders committed by SANDF members dating back to 2019. 4 units in the force have been implicated in the revelation, including the Special Forces Brigade, Military Police, Defense Intelligence, and Defense Legal Services. SANDF Chief Zudzani Mapawanya has urged Open Secrets and those who may have information to bring forth evidence on the allegations.
The Defense Force operates in a constitutional and democratic state where all government institutions operate and adheres to democratic principles of the state. Therefore, like any other government department, the Defense Force can be scrutinized for anything that might seem to be going against the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that must be done within the framework of openness and transparency. For the record, there are no military squads in the Defense Force that exist to carry out acts of torture and murder for whatever reasons. The South African National Defense Force stands for the defense and the protection of the people and will always act within the confines of the law and the Constitution.
Well, still in South Africa, police have intercepted 133 people suspected to be victims of human trafficking. This is the third of such incidents that occurred at the country's northeastern province of Limpopo. According to the police, the victims, which include both children and adults, were transported in 10 minibus taxis. Spokesperson for Limpopo province, Lulani Mashaba, says role players, including Home Affairs, have been summoned to investigate the situation, adding that in most likely cases, the victims are going to be deported back to their border. Or similarly, in a separate operation in Gauteng province, police also announced the rescue of 33 human trafficking victims. Enterprise support organization Faith Foundation has graduated a total of 775 entrepreneurs from various programs it runs across the country. At the organization's 2023 annual celebration and awards ceremony, they celebrated the entrepreneurial tenacity and partnerships that have contributed to this year's success.
It's a celebration of 23 years of enabling businesses across Nigeria and 21 years of the award ceremony of the Faith Foundation, an enterprise support organization dedicated to harnessing Nigeria's entrepreneurial potential. The two-in-one annual program celebrates the spirit of entrepreneurship and critical partnerships that have enabled the journey of aspiring and emerging entrepreneurs, and this year's event is set against a backdrop that echoes the resilience and determination of these individuals celebrating entrepreneurial tenacity.
Let us remember that the spirit of small business is not confined to the walls of the Newson Center. It lives within each and every one of us. The courage to take a leap of faith, the passion to pursue our dreams, and the resilience to overcome any and all obstacles.
775 entrepreneurs with unwavering spirit worked tirelessly for their success in various programs with Faith Foundation. The keynote speaker and the CEO of Slot Systems Limited, using his success story, has a word for the graduates.
As you step into the business world, or as you intend to expand your businesses, do not forget that these challenges would always come. And when they come, the test here is not how you survive, but it is how you are able to introduce a creative approach to solving your personal problems. How you are able to innovate and to adapt and to survive in the midst of adversity is what makes you an entrepreneur.
Cause Director of the Year Award.
Part of the highlights of the ceremony is a momentous award segment presented in 7 different categories to recognize and honor individuals who've displayed exceptional tenacity.
If you look at the founding vision and ethos of Faith Foundation, it was around sustainability and creating things that they continue to get better every year. Our founder is Mr. Fola Adiola, and part of our vision and the ethos we live is of excellence, of growth, of tenacity, and continued improvement. So every year, this also gives us an opportunity to say, what did we do well and why, and how do we continue to do that going forward, and what do we need to improve, change, or add on?
We're operating in a volatile, uncertain, complex country, and you have individuals and organizations who have been barraged by a number of challenges throughout the year. So to be able to, 1, survive the year, 2, be standing, and 3, not only have successful businesses is cause for celebration.
The 2023 annual celebration and awards ceremony celebrates not only success, but also the grit and determination of the entrepreneurs.
This is the second time I'm applying for the Orange Corners Nigerians program. The first time I didn't get in, so I got in this time around. I didn't just get in this time around. I've been able to build my capacity as a business person, improve partnership relationship with my colleagues and businesses outside the OCN community, and it has also helped me increase my revenue by at least 300%.
Founded in the year 2000, Faith Foundation has been enabling aspiring and emerging Nigerian entrepreneurs to start, grow, and scale their businesses.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely weekend.